nevertheless, so crazy faith, crazy faith, crazy faith. So we're coming off chapter 4, and chapter 5. I'm excited to get into next week on chapter 6 as well with you all. And like I said before, we're going to read chapter 6 together. And the whole purpose of us doing this was basically for accountability. Because, you know, this is my first time, and probably you guys' first time doing a book club. This is my first time doing a book club. And the purpose of reading this, like I told you guys before, was to basically be able to renew our mind with Michael Todd's thoughts and apply his thoughts and his faith to our life in different areas. So now going into 2022, imagine what our belief system is going to be like just from reading this crazy, it's in the name, crazy faith. Just imagine where our belief and where our faith is going to be at going into 2022. Why? Because all of us, we took out the time to meditate on this book, to allow this book to renew our hearts. You see what I'm saying? And because this is the thing, it's crazy. And this is off topic. Somebody said to me, actually, my spiritual mother said to me yesterday, she was like, yo, next level, many people think that their next level is attached to a person or a thing. But she said, your new level is attached to your faith. Facts. And I'm like, whoa. She said, it's attached to your faith. It's attached to your belief system. So the question is this, you don't more so have to worry about who's coming, you know, with you 100%, or if your next level is attached to another person or another opportunity or opportunities and things like that. No, your next level, point blank period, is attached to your faith. It is attached to your belief system. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of your heart, or what's flowing actually in your heart. I don't know, I just felt like I had to say that because we're talking about belief system. We're talking about walking in crazy faith. You see what I'm saying? You don't need money. You need a new belief system. It's your faith that attracts God to you. It's your faith. You know, when you giving off that faith and walking in crazy faith, you know, God like, okay, cool, that's my daughter. Okay, cool, that's my son. You know, it's your faith. It's you hoping. It's you hoping that's drawing me near you. You see what I'm saying? I hope that makes sense. But I just felt like I had to say that. But nevertheless, let's go ahead and jump into let's go ahead and jump into it. So basically, who wants to go first? Whoever wants to go first, drop your name in the chat box. What did you take away from chapter 4? Chapter 4 is basically, what was your takeaway from chapter 4? And chapter 4 was basically waiting faith, right? Who want to go first? Drop your name in the chat box. Don't all go at once. Andrea, take it away. Let's get it.
Okay. All right. So I really like chapter 4, actually. I like the whole part with like the FOMO. I like that entire part actually, but my other two favorite parts was, let me see. Okay, when it was on page 73 where he was like, have you considered that maybe God is allowing the gap to prepare you for the promise? And then he continues to say that I wouldn't dare put her in that position before she's mature enough to handle it. I had underlined that because he said something about, what is this? He's going to teach his daughter, you know, how to drive a car, you know, like in a couple of years and things like that. But I like that part specifically because he was saying, you know, I wouldn't put them in a position where if I didn't feel like they could handle it. And I think that's what stuck out for me personally, just because even in chapter 5, they were talking about how, what was it? It was something about, though, like how sometimes, you know.
It's a chapter 5 next. Chapter
yeah, okay. Too much, but you know, God will put you through a storm. So kind of like 4 and 5 like correlate a little bit to me, because in that specific part, you know, he was talking about how he won't put you in a specific situation if God don't feel like, you know, you can actually handle what you're about to go through. And I feel like a lot of times, you know, people go through things and they're like, you know, why me? Like, why is this happening to me? Not realizing that, you know, what's happening, like, I mean, you know, it's happening really for you. And at the end of the day, like, if you're going through a specific situation, there's supposed to be a greater outcome out of, whatever it is that you're actually going through. But it's all about perspective. And I feel like that's the biggest thing. And then second part where I really liked was also my grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. And then he said, for when I am weak, then I am strong. And that right there, I feel like also, a lot of people, honestly, always tend to go to God, when they're weak in general. But I also believe that specifically when you're weak, that God is, a healer, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like it's going to be natural for him to go to, somebody when they're weak, and he's there to heal people. Like he's there. I forgot, it was, somewhere in Mark where he was like, God was hanging out with like the tax collectors and everything, and everybody was like, why is he hanging out with them and things like that. Everybody's looking at him crazy, but it's like that's what he's here, like Jesus was hanging out with all those people and everything because he's a natural healer. He's trying to, of course, turn everybody, to the word and things like that. So I feel like even when people are weak, that's exactly, who he's going to go ahead and turn to. That's who he's actually going to go ahead and help. So yeah, those are my two favorite parts though.
I like that. She said what stood out to her. She was like, when I am weak, she basically God was saying basically my strength works best in your weakness. And that's a fact. You definitely gotta come, like you have to come to an end of yourself for God to fill you up. I literally was just telling somebody that today. Like it's when you come to an end of yourself when God can actually reach out and pour you up. You see what I'm saying? So that's a fact. I like those two. I believe who else who put their name in the chat box? Jalen, then Lena. Lena, take it away. Jalen, take it away.
For sure. It was page 67. Michael Todd was talking about just like having faith and how he had wrote his Habakkuk 2 verse 2, write the vision, make it plain. But it was his faith that like had attracted the drums. Like he had said on page 67, like his dad said, your faith produced that. Now I know what you're probably thinking. No, your parents produced that, but here's the truth. What stood out to me was my parents were broke. It was my faith that attracted the needed finances through them. They were not the source. They were a resource that God used to bring his promise to pass in his child's life. And so just the way I've been looking at things is it's not always necessarily just what it is. We may have the right item in the right situation. And they talk about this later on in the chapter as well. We might have the right item in the right situation, but it's not what it is that we need to get from it. It's using it as a resource to really obtain, and God will produce that with you when you make it your faith. And then it was page 77. He said, too often what we think is moving us forward in the moment is actually moving us backward, disqualifying us in the long run. Not because it isn't the right thing, but because it is the wrong timing. The right thing and the wrong timing is a curse. The pressure of that tight, hard press spot produces panic instead of trust and solve. What do tight spots produce in you? And so when I was looking at that, I started thinking, just imagine all the spots I'd been in and how I'd reacted, whether I had an anger blowout or I was very calm and collected in the situation. And so just understanding that, again, in these tight situations, that's when regardless, I feel as though we should always connect with God in your great moments, your high moments, your low moments, but especially in your tight moments, it's just, what do you run to? Do you think you have the answer, or or are you going to God for the answer?
That man in his bag. Let's go ahead and drop some fire in the chat box for that. That man, hey, he pinpoints some stuff right on the head for real. Like that's lit. You said that in your tight spots, what do you do? And that's a fact. That's a fact. And Andrea said something earlier. She was like, a father ain't gonna give their children anything when they're not mature, basically. And basically, when you're in tight spots, God is doing something to mature your patience, or God is doing something to work something in you. And you in a tight spot because God wants you to trust him. So nah, bro, that's definitely good, bro. I definitely see what you're saying. You got anything else you want to say about chapter 4? Well, that's the most thing. That's what stood out to you.
I had a lot of stuff, but as far as like what really stood out to me, like the most, those two things really stood out to me.
Right. Okay. Okay. Who else? Lena, you take it away. And this is the thing too, guys, as y'all saying this, y'all want to think, okay, cool. I'm saying these things that stand out to me. Now ask yourself, with your current situation going on in your life right now, how can you apply what he's saying in your life right now? Are you in a tight spot? If you're in a tight spot, how are you responding? Are you reacting? Are you worrying? Because Philippians, I believe 4, it's in Philippians 4. Philippians 4 says, don't worry about anything, instead pray about everything, tell God what you need. Like when you get into tight spots, do you react or do you respond? Because when you respond, that means you trusting on God to come through type stuff. So just be thinking, how can y'all apply this to y'all situation now? But my bad, Lena, go take it away.
No, you straight. Definitely, I like that you pointed that out. But honestly, piggybacking on both of their ideas. So I'm glad that Jalen did speak, because it reminded me to go back to page 66, 67. So yeah, like, I highlighted some pinpoints, and it was basically like, parents, hear me. Just because you don't have the childlike trust to believe for something, don't tell your children it's impossible. Give them the permission to dream, right? You might end up learning something, and that it's just kind of going back to like, you have to stay teachable and coachable, because you can learn a lot from different people of different walks of life, right? Another thing that I highlighted is so it says, it was my faith that attracted the needed finances through them. They were not the source. They were a reason that God used to bring his promise to pass in his child's life. That was huge to me, because like God works through people. We all know that, right? Another thing that I like, I just highlighted faith-filled declarations. That's something that I want to keep in mind. But really the page that went crazy for me. Oh, okay. So now I have a lot of things that I liked about this chapter for sure. It was talking a lot. And so I highlighted page 70. All I had was a promise from God and assurance to trust him. Because after all, everything I'd done up to that point was only because of him. And so on the bottom of the page, I highlighted, God showed himself faithful, continuing to provide the resources we needed to sustain while gathering the right people to partner with the vision he'd given for our future. And honestly, this is applying to my life as we speak right now, because I went into the convention, kind of just like closer to Hermela, which is sitting right next to me, closer to Hermela, right? For sure. And of course, can you call Chris? My bad, sorry, someone was calling me. But like I said, I was more just like, I just really knew Hermela. But then leaving that convention, I left with the family. I left next to Hermela, Moose, Winter, and this girl Zuleika that I had just met 3 days ago, right? And I now realize that God is providing the resources that I need to sustain while gathering God is providing the resources, but now I'm gathering the right people to partner with me to build this dream, because to build this promise that God gave me. And it's just amazing to see, to live it and then read it, because I feel like God has been sending a lot of messages to me, and I'm gonna get into that a little bit later. But another thing I highlighted, we can't ignore the Lord's clear leading, and I feel like that's me right now. Like, I'm not ignoring it, I'm hearing him out. And one thing that did help me a lot was, how a couple weeks ago I did ask you, how do you hear from God? And in that moment, I knew what I needed to do. I needed to hop on Michael Todd's How Does God Speak to Us? But in that moment, I didn't even want to hear from God like how I thought I did, if that makes sense. Like, I was like, I'll get to it, right? So boom, I finally get to it. I already left convention. I'm thinking differently. I'm thinking on a higher level. So I go through it, and now I'm getting all these messages from God, and everything is just aligning. Like, day by day by day, I'm hearing him. Like, side note, aside from this chapter, I was just talking to Hermela about something. Oh yeah, I have to separate from different people because they're in a different paradigm. And I'm like, wait, what does that even mean? I'm just saying these words, you know what I'm saying? I look at paradigm, someone that has a certain pattern. And I was like, oh, so I do know what I'm talking about. And I actually heard it at the convention. He was talking about paradigm shifts and all that. This morning, I wake up on Nendo's call, and I actually hopped on late because I don't know what I was doing. I hopped on late. It was like 6:05. So he's playing these videos. I hop on the second that Bob Proctor says paradigm shift. And I was just like, okay. And to me, I was like, because I felt like I was hearing God was just saying, good morning. Like that was his way of saying, hey, good morning. You know what I'm saying? I was just telling her about that. So I thought that was pretty amazing, but this was the page that went crazy. 70, 72, 73, the whole thing's highlighted. So I'm gonna read a little bit because I wanted to hit you guys like how it hit me, because I honestly just read this like an hour ago. So it says, the gap between promise and provision is the hard part. It can be incredibly difficult to wait on something I need or want, but what helps is knowing that I trust my wife, because he's talking about how like she said something and he trusted her, right? Even though I can't taste it yet, which is the dream, the vision, you know, all of that, it's coming. So I wait and prepare myself to receive it. I clear the table. I set up the plates. This is him waiting for his wife's dinner that he's, you know, he wants to taste. But I think the dinner for me is the vision, the dream. I walk the kids. I imagine how good it's going to be and how satisfied I will feel sitting at the table with my family to enjoy what she had prepared, what God had prepared. And then down on the last paragraph of that 72 page, it says, there will always be an area of your life with a gap that only faith in God can fill. And like I said, everything, this whole book, I feel like it just relates back to this business and having faith that, you know, the results are there, the promise is there. God is giving us that vision and promise. We just have to have the faith to fill up the gap between these, you know, the time that's going to take to get there, right? And it says, and if you settle for filling it up with other things, I guarantee you will always end up disappointed. To top it off, you could delay the promise even more. My friend, I know you're hungry, but don't settle. And it says, he will also grant you the grace to wait for his provision. And then like this whole thing, I love how he used like his analogy of waiting for his wife's dinner for him. And it says, instead of filling up on snacks that ruin my appetite or sitting idly in front of the TV waiting to be served, I have learned to ask now what I can do to help. If she doesn't need a hand in the kitchen, I spend time with her kids so she can focus, you know, yada, yada, right? But it says, while you're waiting on God, wait on God. No, that's not a typo. Wait on God, as in serve him. So we have to serve him while we're waiting for everything to come into fruition. We have to serve him. And that can be like what he said, like you can help other people serve their vision, if that makes sense. And it says, have you considered that maybe God is allowing the gap to prepare you for his promise? Basically what Andrea has said, right? And I actually heard this like quote that they said just this weekend. It says, when God's timing meets your preparation, that's when you will receive overflow. And so that would definitely hit. Like I said, everything's just aligning with my whole life. It says, like he said, but I also highlighted about, but I wouldn't dare to put her in that position before she is mature enough to handle it, right? Because that would be irresponsible of me as her father, and it could put her and others in great danger. In the same way, Father God sometimes tests our patience to build our endurance, train us to handle what's coming, and teach us to trust fully in him. And yeah, and it says his grace will give us power and wisdom to balance patience with taking steps in faith. Yeah, that's really like a lot of I like those 2 pages a lot. They were speaking a lot to me. And like, I'm grateful that it's like really being aligned with my life. Like, I'm not just reading this book and be like, oh, that's cool. You know, like, oh, that's dope. God's cool. Like, I'm actually living. I feel like I'm living this book right now. So I'm extremely grateful for sure. Yeah.
Let's go ahead and drop some fire in the chat box for that. Let's go ahead and drop some fire in the chat box for Lena. She was in her bag. I'm not gonna lie. She was in her bag. Everything you said made sense. Everything you said made complete sense. You took the words out my mouth, like literally. Like,
That next page is crazy too. Crazy faith. Let me tell y'all something after too. Okay, hold on. God is speaking to me. So he was talking about Usain Bolt and how, you know, Usain Bolt is the GOAT. He's the quickest man on earth. Right? But there's this championship world championships in whatever year 2011, but it says milliseconds before the shot, Bolt began to run, and almost immediately he knew his false start had cost him the race. And that just goes back to timing. Like, you have to wait on God. You have to be patient. It says he had the opportunity, ability, and experience to win. The only thing that he had wrong was timing. Like, I feel like I was like almost shaking. I'm like, you can't rush the process. You know, everything's on God's timing. Everything is on God's timing. So, okay, all right, I'm done. That was, yeah. There's a lot more, but those were really speaking to me for sure. Those 3 pages.
Can I say something real quick?
Go ahead.
Nah, yeah, like it's crazy that you speak on like the timing aspect. I was reading this verse. It was 1 Corinthians 6:12, and it said, "All things are permitted for me, but not all things are of benefit. All are permitted for me, but I will not be mastered by anything." And so just within that, and just in you saying that, I go to start analyzing the things that I give my time to. Am I rushing? Am I moving too fast? What do I give my time to? Does it benefit me? Is it benefiting? Okay, what are the benefits? What are the tragedies, quote unquote, that come with it? And so it's just like the timing of it. Is it the right time to experience it? Everything that. So that scripture just popped in my head while you said that.
Get it. Does anybody else want to go that hasn't spoke about chapter 4 before we move on to chapter 5? If so, write your name in the put your name in the chat box. And just say, like I said, if you got two major takeaways from chapter 4, go ahead and put your name in the chat box if you want to say something. If not, we're gonna move on to chapter 5.
Can I tell you something too? I just ordered some fries from downstairs, JBO. The server's name was Faith. I got a receipt and it said Face. Crazy.
All right, James, go take it away. That's crazy. James, take it away.
For sure. What's good, family? So, 2 things what I got from chapter 4 was the first one. He said, settling for a counterfeit version of the promise you waiting for never does. So did I read it right? Settling for a counterfeit version of the promise you're waiting on for it never does. So what I receive from that small sentence is that many people would like settle for the snack, but not wait for the promise. So the promise is pretty much the meal, the dinner at the end, right? What your mom told you that she was gonna cook, but you couldn't wait or be patient. So you're not go get some Burger King. So now you cannot you're not willing to go further for the promise or believe in the promise, if that's making sense. So my fault, fam. I just woke up, but late. So the second thing I actually got from here too, as well, is when he said, if you would believe, it's better for you to share your secret or what you believe in with other people, because that shows how you trust in him to deliver his promises to you. So that's another thing, right? Because for sure, because many people will say, okay, God gave me a vision. God gave me a vision. Whole time you got the vision and you're not telling nobody what it is. So how can you really trust or believe that it's from God? Because you could hear things from anywhere, for real. So that's another thing that I got, and I just know that like we're all in I Am Academy, so I think this whole thing related to this company a lot. You know what I'm saying? So like, not many people are gonna understand your vision. Not many people are gonna be a part of your vision, because not many people are willing to go through the process. So yeah, for sure, that's what I got.
Woo! That man being his Duffy, for real. He sound like me. He sound like me. That's millionaire in seed form, man. That man's a millionaire in seed form. I say that. Nah, that's lit. That's lit. He said, how can you say you trust in God if you're not even speaking about the vision? I like that. That's a fact, because you can tell what has your heart or what's in your heart based on what's coming out your mouth, because out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth always speaks. So if it's a dominant desire, you're going to constantly be speaking about it. And if you speaking about it, that's just a pure fact that you have faith that God is. Think about it. If you believing for something in crazy faith and you're constantly speaking about it, that's just showing God that you have faith for it because you're talking about it. You see what I'm saying? That's a fact. So that's cool. Y'all, I like all of y'all takeaways from chapter 4. I think I'm gonna just say one thing before we jump into chapter 5. My biggest takeaway from chapter 4 was this. And I can speak from experience. The gap between the promise and the gap between promise and provision is the hard part. Woo, we talking about waiting faith, right? So if you talk about waiting faith, that's the gap between the promise is your vision. No, between the promise and the provision. The provision is the vision. The promise is the destination where you want to get to. That's the hard part, because in that gap, what happening is, in that gap, God has to take you through a process of character building before you can get the promise. That's how I look at everything in life. Okay, cool. I have a vision for this. No, I have a vision for this right here, and this is the promise. This is the end result. The vision, and this is the end result. And the gap, this is the hard part. What's the hard part? Processing, character building, patience, self-control. You see what I'm saying? Fruits of the spirit. But then it says, while you're going through the gap, what makes the way easy is you serving other people. So because it's the thing, at any moment, God stands outside of time. So because he stands outside of time, he can give you the promise at any moment. Like I said, he stands outside of time. So understanding that, you have to serve other people's visions to speed up your process type stuff. It's not about waiting. It's about what you're doing while you're waiting. It's called waiting faith. It's not about just waiting. It's about, what am I doing while I'm waiting on my promise to process? You see what I'm saying? So that was the biggest thing that stood out to me. And it's a lot more, but I'm gonna just say that was the biggest thing that actually stood out to me. And another thing, hasty faith. Hasty faith may be a habit. Hasty faith is basically hasty faith is basically not having the patience. So even, I'm gonna say this, even when I was in tight spots in my life and things like that, I had no choice. See, I'm gonna say this, if you're in a spot right now and what you're up against is bigger than you with this thing. If you're in a spot right now in your life, in any area of your life, and the thing that you're up against is out of your control, it's out of your control. You can't, so all you gotta do is put your faith in God, who can move mountains, because it says, even if your faith is as small as a mustard seed, it can move mountains. But it's about what you put in your faith in, or who you put in your faith in to be able to move that mountain. It's about what you're doing while you wait. But I'm done. I ain't gonna really say too much about chapter 4, but let's go ahead and jump into chapter 5. Let's go ahead and jump into chapter 5. So if you can, drop your name in the chat box, and 2 major things that stood out to you in chapter 5. Chapter 5 was basically wavy faith. All right, so drop your name in the chat box. Let's get it. James, go, then Andrea.
Yeah, for sure. So from chapter 5, man, where it says, why does Jesus tell Peter to get out of his safe? 30, but does he want to put his beloved disciples in danger? In fact, why would Jesus tell the disciples to sail out on the lake at all? Doesn't he know there's a storm coming? Let me tell you why Jesus is completely unfazed. And it goes by saying this, man. In the beginning the word was already written, and the word was already with God. So understand that God already, our future is already God's past, is what I receive from this point, because He's already written the story on how everything goes. The only thing is, do you have enough faith enough to go with what God is telling you to do? Because understand He is the creator of all things. So from that, from page 88 to page 89, that's what I received. Because we got to understand that God is a powerful God. God just wants you to know and see how He works. He wants you to believe enough with Him, because through faith, like you said, as a small as a mustard seed, it can move a big mountain. And we can see, we know how a mountain look like. So you just got to picture that. So sure, that's what I got from 5. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, my bad. Okay. I know you were gonna say something, JBL. Sorry. um, so what I liked about 5 was where it was page 98 where so it said God's a restorer of lost time. So it starts with, I want you to know that God is a restorer of lost time. He doesn't stop time, He restores time. He exists in eternity, so time is not a constraint for Him. This means that it's not too late for you. What took others a long time to do on their own, God can bring to you in a moment. And I like that because I feel like this year, well, it's crazy because honestly, just to be real, like we always, for a lot of times, people do tend to forget like what God has done for them in the past. So when they're going through things currently, it's like sometimes they really forget like, what He has done for them. And I know like from, I definitely, can say that this year I definitely forgot. I think, my P2 to P5 run in the business, it was like so I don't know if y'all I don't know if y'all have ever read Outwitting the Devil or not, but in that book it talks about like your other self, and it's like something like I literally just like if you just know, like I don't know how to explain like that feeling, but it's just about that time right there, like when I was able to move in the business the way that I move, I didn't know how, when, or how that even how I did what I did, what I'm saying. And then now the P5 to C10 run, I feel like I was so focused on that time. And it's like, I have to even realize, like, even in the next 2 months, like crazy things can happen. And I wrote down some notes with that time specifically where I was just saying, time is going to imprison you. So time is really an element of the earth. So really when you walk in a spirit, you're walking like independent of your senses. Like, so there's really no such thing as time. Like time really doesn't exist. You know what I'm saying? Like time does not exist at all. And I think that once I started to finally get that again and remember like what was done in the past, like I'm more able to separate that, that different thing. And like you really just start to operate in a different realm. Like it's a really like it's I don't know, like that book, the best way to put it was like the other self, like that book really put it in a good way. But yeah, that was what like was, He restores time. And another point was kind of similar to what you just said, JVO, with the okay, yeah. So all right, I lied. Okay, it was like a couple things actually. So I did like this one part where walking with the Savior requires you to step out of what's safe. And there was another part where it was like he's not looking for people with a high IQ, but he's looking for people that have faith. And that right there stood out to me because sometimes, people, they're not going to do something that might, look a little dangerous, look a little scary because of that fear. And a lot of times, people really operate in that, specifically in that fear instead of faith. And I think it was Michael Todd was talking about like imagination right now, like super big on imagination. He was saying imagination is the spiritual womb, but I think he said it was anxiety is a spiritual womb with a combination of imagination and fear. And so a lot of people don't actually go ahead and, do certain things because they're scared. You know what I'm saying? They're not sure of that outcome. And so a lot of times, what might look a little bit scary to us is like, or might look like, those like little setbacks is really going to propel us to, something that we can't see right now. But God is aware of. Yeah.
No, that was good. That was really good for sure. That was definitely good. That made sense 100%. I believe Lena, you want to go? Take it away.
Yeah, I really like what you said too. I highlighted some similar things, but like definitely, what I got from this chapter was like, what she said, like hold on, let me get back to it. Like sometimes you may think like things are like a setback, but it's really a setup from God, but you can't really understand that because like what he said here, it's because you're literally in the smack of the middle of the storm, right? So you don't really understand like what's going on. But while you're in the middle of the storm, like he said, God is peacefully asleep with his head cradled on a stopping wet pillow. Like while you're over here, like panicking, God's asleep in an uncomfortable position. Like he's chilling, you know what I'm saying? Like while you're not good, he's chilling. While you think things are not going good, he's chilling because he knows what he got in store for you, right? And another thing that I really liked about this chapter, because it kind of spoke to me, basically saying like Peter is godly like because he's learning the faith that God has, and Peter is godly like with the lowercase g, godly like with the for sure, because he has enough faith in God that he wants to move like God. As far as like he says, he becomes the faith inspiring example. Peter needs to step out of the boat. So because Peter walked on water, and who else walked on water? Only Jesus. And it says the moment Peter is exposed to master level wavy faith, he has to try it for himself. And for a moment, he too is unfazed by the waves. And it's kind of like making me think, like, we all have like what is the word I want to say? Like basically we all have like an inner God, like a Holy Spirit that can come out of us if we have enough faith to let it get to that level. Like we have to keep working on our faith, which is what we're doing right now, to become close, even a little bit closer to God and godly like, right? Another thing, like similar to what Andrea said, is basically like you can't be scary. You can't be scary in anything that you do, because that's just gonna take away from your own celebrations, your own fruits. And it says, think about amazing adventures they miss out on because they fear not being able to be their own saviors. And and it says, deep down, they wonder what they're missing and wish they could move beyond what's safe and uncomfortable. And I feel like that's sometimes people that don't want to sign up with you. They see the vision, they want to be like you, but they want to be safe and they want to stay comfortable. So that comfortableness doesn't allow them to be great and step out of a zone that can take them to higher levels. And it says people who don't know how to start, people who don't know how they're going to save themselves won't even try to start the business. It literally is talking about businesses too. And and it says, even when Peter gets distracted by the storm, allowing fear to consume his faith and beginning to drown, he is close enough proximity to Jesus to be saved. But I feel like basically what that says is like he had it, he was walking on water and everything, but he got distracted. He was walking on water, but he got distracted, and that caused him to nearly drown, right? He got saved, but the point is like he was moving in faith, but the distractions can cost you a lot, right? And it says walking with the Savior requires you to step out of what's safe. He wants to empower you to be the first person in your family. It says the whole sentence, it says he wants to empower you to be the first person in your family who stays married longer than 5 years, but I didn't highlight the married longer than 5 years because I'm just like focusing on what relates to me, right? And it says he wants to empower you with wisdom and set up a legacy of wealth for your future great grandchildren. Like we're all chosen. The people on this call, I feel like we're all chosen because that's why we're here, right? That's why we're on this call, for sure. But no, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even get to finish this whole chapter, but like I feel like this book is just getting better and better and speaking more to everybody on this call for sure.
Lena be snapping when she in her zone, like for real. Does anybody else want to go? That give 2 things that you got from chapter 5. Drop your name in the chat box. Does anyone else want to say something about chapter 5? If not, I'm gonna go. Okay, cool. Going once, going twice. So let's get, I'm gonna go. All right, cool. My biggest takeaways from chapter 5, Wavy Faith, this is actually one of my favorite chapters. You know, basically it's crazy because in this story, and I relate this back to even, you know, the business that I'm in as well too, how Jesus told his disciples to get on a boat and go out to the water. Being is God. God is an omnipotent God. He stands outside of time, right? So if Jesus told them to go on a boat and cross, and when Jesus told them, Jesus went up to the mountain to pray to God. Why they're, you know, why they in a boat? 3 a.m. in the morning, Jesus come walking on the water. And as he comes walking on the water, it's a big storm happening. As they say in the story, it's a big storm. And as that big storm is happening, they all freak out, right? And then they see somebody walking on water. They say, oh, is that a ghost type stuff? And then Peter, he was like, Lord, if it's you, tell me to come on the water. So Peter said that to Jesus, and Jesus told Peter to come. So Peter got out the boat. And when Peter got out the boat, he started walking on the water. And as he started walking on the water, he started walking on the water, right? In the supernatural. He's walking in the supernatural. But what made Peter sink was Peter taking his eyes off of Jesus and started looking at the waves. The waves was the distractions. And because he looked left and he looked right and didn't keep straight, keeping his focus on God, keeping his focus on Jesus, he began to drown. He began to lose faith, right? But as he began to drown, Jesus reached his hand out and pulled them up. And as Jesus reached his hand out and pulled them up, why did he do that? Because Jesus stands outside of time. He's a God. Jesus was there before the world was even formed. So Jesus knows the strength of the waves. He knows the strength of the wind. He knows everything to the T. And I say all that to say, relate that back to your situation, right? Whatever area you in, let's say your business. Jesus told you to start the business. He told you to get into the relationship, right? And as you're doing that, you're walking in the supernatural. But what happens is, if you're thinking about like your current situation, what happens is a lot of people begin to sink in a process because they're looking at the next person. They're looking from left to right instead of keeping their eyes on their goal, instead of keeping their eyes on Jesus, instead of keeping their eyes on, you know, God and letting the Holy Spirit lead them. But it's okay, because even if you begin to drown, you begin to lose faith in your business, you begin to lose faith in your relationships, or begin to lose faith in whatever it is that you're going through in your life. God stands outside of time. So at any moment you begin to fix your focus on him, guess what? He can pull you back up. And like I said, he's a redeemer of time. However much stuff you lost, however long you think it take you, he stands outside of time. So that's why he can give you to you at any moment type stuff. That stood out to me 100%. And it says that good, bad, or ugly, every circumstance in your life is either God used or God sent. So anything that's going on in your life, and you're going through something, God, either he's using the situation or he sent it. Why? Because if you did not go through that, it would not develop something called the fruits of the spirit within you. I truly feel like that we go through things because God is an intentional God. He's very intentional. he sends it to you, or he sends you in there, and that's called your wilderness. If you don't know what's going on, if you don't, that's called your will. That's called the wilderness. You're walking in the wilderness. See, when Jesus was being tempted, he was led in the wilderness by the Spirit. He was led in the wilderness in the spirit by the Spirit to get tempted by the devil. So if you're in a process where you don't know, you have uncertainty, faith begins with understanding the end. Now you have to keep your focus on God. Why? Because it's a lot of things that's going to come, but God is using it to develop something in you, to grow you, to mature you, right? To mature you. Whoever heard of a father that does not mature their children? You see what I'm saying? But like I said, it's all sent by God. It was all sent by God. And where God sends, that's another thing, and I'm done. Where God sends you, he always supplies. You want to write that down. Wherever God sends you, if Jesus told you to get on the boat and cross the river, if Jesus told you to start that business, get in that relationship, serve those people, if he sent you and he told you and you doing it, and check this out, if you're the first person in your family to start a business, if you're the first person to get around millionaires, things like that, God sent you. If he sent you, he's going to supply for you. He's going to supply. But then that goes back to waiting faith. You in wavy faith, but now that goes back to waiting faith. Wait on God, because whatever God sends, he supplies. How do I know that? I'm a living testimony. Like, guys, my secret weapon of my life, I prayed. And because I prayed. I pray. You think I pray? Everything that I pray for and I ask God for, he just gives it to me. He just gives it to me. Any and everything that I have in my life, I prayed. Before it could hit my hands, it had to hit my head. It had to hit my head before it hit my hands. But I'm done now. I don't want to talk y'all ears off or nothing like that. I promise you. But that's what stood out to me in chapter 5, Wavy Faith, one of the best chapters I read. But everybody on the call, y'all dropped some nuggets. Y'all dropped a lot of value. Y'all in y'all bag for sure. I'm excited for y'all 100%, because I'm excited for y'all to step out on faith going into 2022. Y'all think this might be a small thing, but guys, this is not a small thing. I'm trying to tell y'all, like, this is like the biggest thing that you guys can do in your life right now, increasing your faith, increasing your belief system. You see what I'm saying? Because once your mind get expanded, it can't go back to being normal, right? So again, guys, this is very intentional. You guys are on here for a specific reason. God knows he sent you here, and he sent you here for a reason. Everything is very intentional, but that's everything, guys. But next week, we're going to actually read chapter 6 together, Lazy Faith. We're going to read chapter 6, Lazy Faith, together. We almost done with the book. Like, we're literally almost done with this book. 100%. We'll finish this book in December. But this is the book that we're going to read towards the end of the year. But we're going into Lazy Faith next week, and we're going to read that chapter together. So next week, if you want to read and you haven't read yet, you can read next week if you want to, right? It's only 20 pages per chapter type stuff. 20 pages per chapter. So if you want to read next week, just come prepared and you can read, right? I definitely want to hear some new voices, but if not, I'll read. But nevertheless, guys, let's go ahead and drop some fire in the chat box for today. Let's go ahead and drop some fire in the chat box for today. Y'all, I'm happy for y'all. I'm excited for y'all. 100%. And I'm excited for next week. Y'all, like, stay consistent, stay disciplined, stay consistent, stay focused. And yeah, let's get it. I'll see y'all next week.